Hello and welcome back to The Critique. Today we're looking at a two-part video series, Equality or Burden, which argues that integrating women into IDF combat roles is a progressive project that's weakening the Army.
Yeah, this is a really charged piece. It's passionate for sure, but that passion kind of gets in the way of the argument itself. Our job is to see how we can make it more persuasive for an audience that isn't already on board.
Let's get right into it. The first big issue is the way the whole thing is framed.
Right, the equality versus victory idea?
Exactly. It sets up this binary conflict where the IDF leadership has apparently chosen equality over winning.
And that's the core weakness, isn't it? It's a classic false dichotomy. It forces you to believe that the Army's top generals are, actively trying to lose.
Which for anyone in the middle, any moderate listener, that's just a bridge too far. It sounds like you're calling them traitors.
It does. It puts people on the defensive immediately. So the suggestion here is to pivot completely.
Stop talking about ideology.
Yes, stop trying to guess what's in a general's heart and instead focus on the specific, concrete trade-offs happening on the ground.
And the material actually has the perfect example for this, but it's sort of buried.
The wall.
The anecdote about the wall in the training course.
Let's zero in on that. The text says female soldiers couldn't get over the standard wall obstacle.
So instead of failing them, what happened?
The commanders brought in a bench or a chair to help them over. That image, a chair at an obstacle course wall, that is the most powerful piece of evidence in the whole series. And it's treated like a side note.
So the feedback is to make that the anchor.
Make that the whole argument. Don't ask, do you hate equality? Ask a very specific operational question.
Does a chair at the wall help you win a war?
Exactly. Does it help you win in Lebanon? It's undeniable. It forces the other side to defend the lowering of a standard. You're no longer making a huge claim about progressive agendas.
You're just pointing to the chair.
You're pointing to the chair and showing that right there, lethality was traded for inclusion. That's a winning argument because it's visual and it's real.
Okay, moving to the second major point. The material tries to draw a straight line from these gender policies to the failures of October 7th.
The elephant in the room. And look, emotionally, I get it. It's very tempting to say, see, we told you so.
But logically, it's a huge leap.
It's a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. Just because B happened after A doesn't mean A caused B. It feels like a stretch unless you can produce a real smoking gun.
And that's the danger, right? If you make this huge claim that progressivism caused October 7th, and your opponent points to just one mixed-gender unit that fought heroically,
and there are those stories,
then your entire argument just crumbles. You lose all credibility.
So the weakness is making a causal link that you can't actually prove. The suggestion has to be to either find that specific evidence, a unit that failed because it was mixed, or, and this is what I'd recommend,
Decouple the argument.
Completely. The piece talks about the Yahalom, the gender advisor, and all this bureaucracy. That's a solid point on its own.
Right. The argument can be that these policies hurt long-term readiness.
Yes, that's a provable trend. October 7th was. It was a fog of war. So many variables. Intelligence failures, political failures. Don't let the noise of that day drown out your very specific critique.
Stick to the data you actually have.
Stick to the data. It's less dramatic than who lost the war, but it's much harder to argue with.
Okay, which brings us to the physiological data. This was a really strong part of the piece.
The medical evidence, stress fractures, hip problems, fertility issues.
It's the most compelling section, but I found the way it was presented a bit frustrating.
I agree. The framing is the weakness. You have this hard empirical medical data, but it's wedged between all this rhetoric about radical feminism and foreign money.
It makes the facts feel like a weapon, like the author is just using these injured women to score points.
It lacks empathy. The soldiers become data points, not, victims of a flawed policy.
And that's going to alienate a lot of listeners.
For sure. So the suggestion is a total reframe. Make the medical testimony the main event.
And drop the I told you so tone.
Drop it completely. Make it sound more like a health and safety report or a whistleblower exposing something.
The piece mentions a soldier who needed 2 hip replacements by the time she was 20.
2 hip replacements. Just stop and think about that. That's a young woman whose life is permanently altered because the system pushed her past her physical limits.
When you frame it like that, it's not an anti-woman argument.
It's the opposite. That's a pro-woman argument. You're arguing the system was negligent.
The critique should be the Army knew. They had reports, like the Segov report mentioned in the text.
They knew the injuries would happen, and they did it anyway. That's the scandal. The question isn't about feminism. It's about administrative abuse. Why is the IDF disabling its own soldiers? That's a question the chief of staff has to answer, no matter what your politics are.
Let's shift to the sociological side of things, the alienation of religious soldiers.
The Hesderia Shiva students, right?
Leaving elite units because of integration?
This is a tricky argument to make, very tricky, because the material just assumes the listener thinks this is a bad thing. But if you're a secular person in Tel Aviv, you hear religious men refuse to serve with women, and you might just think,
Good riddance.
good, if they're that intolerant, maybe they shouldn't be in command. It sounds like a problem with them, not a problem with the army.
So the weakness is that the connection isn't made clear for a secular audience.
It isn't. The suggestion is to reframe it. This isn't a religious objection issue. It's a unit cohesion issue.
And how do you do that?
You explain the mechanics. You show the friction. And again, there's a perfect story in the text that does this. The tank battalion in the Jordan Valley.
Ah, the one where the couple in the unit broke up.
Yes. And the text says half the unit was on her side, half on his. The whole battalion ground to a halt because of relationship drama.
That has nothing to do with religion.
Nothing. It's about human nature. It demonstrates that you're compromising the professional hierarchy. A tank crew is a tiny, claustrophobic environment built on absolute trust.
You can't have romantic jealousy in that mix?
You just can't. The feedback here is to lead with that story. Tell the secular listener the religious soldier isn't leaving because he's a misogynist. He's leaving because he sees a system that is becoming fundamentally unprofessional.
And you can tie that to the joint service order mentioned in the text.
Exactly. The rule that says a female soldier's service takes precedence over a religious soldier's rights. Frame that as a loss of command flexibility.
You're tying the commander's hands.
Right. You have this huge pool of highly motivated recruits, the Hesder guys, and you're essentially barring them from the tank corps. You're putting a social goal ahead of manning your tanks. That's an operational problem, not a religious one.
Okay, final point, the tone, specifically around the NGOs and other organizations.
Yeah, the New Israel Fund, foreign governments, all of that.
The material spends a lot of time on their funding and motivations.
It's a classic genetic fallacy. The argument is that the policies are bad because of who funded them.
And to anyone not already in that camp, it just sounds like a conspiracy theory.
It really does. It preaches to the choir and tunes everyone else out. So the suggestion is to change focus. Stop talking about who funded the change and start talking about how the change was implemented.
Deceptively, as the text argues.
Using the salami method, which is a great phrase they use.
Slicing the change so thin you don't notice.
Exactly. Show the process. Show how it went from a UN resolution to a general staff order. Critique the process, not the people. For instance, the piece says officers are afraid of the Supreme Court of Bagatz.
So don't just name drop the villains.
No. Explain the mechanism of fear. Explain how a commander in the field hesitates because he's thinking about a potential lawsuit. The problem isn't that the lawyers are leftists. The problem is that the legalization of the army is causing paralysis.
If a commander is making decisions based on legal cover instead of tactical reality.
Yeah, the army is already broken. It doesn't matter who paid for the policy. The result is paralysis.
Okay, that's a very clear set of critiques. Let's try to summarize the actionable steps for the creator.
I'd boil it down to 5 main shifts.
Go for it.
First, drop the traitor generals narrative. It's a false choice. Replace it with the chair at the wall. Make them defend the chair.
Okay, number 2.
Decouple the argument from October 7th. It's too messy and the causal link is too weak. Focus on the long-term erosion of readiness.
And the medical evidence?
That's number 3. Reframe it as a negligence issue. Protect the soldiers. The 20-year-old with 2 hip replacements is your emotional anchor.
Number 4 on the religious soldier.
Reframe religious rights as unit cohesion. Use the tank battalion breakup story. Make it about professionalism, not prayer.
And finally, the NGO.
Number 5, attack the methods, not the funders. Focus on the salami method and the legal paralysis. Show how lawyers have handcuffed the army.
If they make those changes, the piece really transforms. It goes from a political rant to a powerful operational critique.
It forces the army to answer for the real-world consequences. The broken bones, the lowered standards. It turns a shout into a surgical strike.
We really hope this helps the creators.
It's an important conversation and deserves the sharpest possible argument. And to our listener, if you have work you'd like us to review, please send it our way.
We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.